Hi, welcome to our Morocco retreat chat today. Today, our hosts are myself, I'm Andrea Mahan. I am the trip lead for Traverse Journeys, and I have with me Adil.
Hi,
Adil.
good morning, everyone.
Adil's our Moroccan local guide. And today we are going to talk about um, Morocco. But before I dive into the trip details, I want to tell you a little bit about us. Traverse Journeys is a tour operator, and we run trips in 25 different international countries. All of our trips have a focus on people, planet, and purpose. So, people is about the interactions, the conversations, the impact that we make as people on our trips. And we aim to keep money in the local economies and to have a positive experience that's not only positive and transformative for you as the traveler, but also for the people you encounter and the communities that you interact with. Planet is a concept involving minimizing our carbon footprint and leaving no trace. We try to minimize the use of plastics and waste production, and those are the types of things that we look for when we're planning a trip to a destination. And purpose is about giving things meaning. So for every trip, we partner with a nonprofit local community partner who's doing impactful work for the community, and they truly create transformative experiences for you as the traveler and for the places you're visiting. And we want to pay those places the utmost respect. So this is a photo from Chefchaouen. It's the Blue City. It's part of our add-on, but we're going to go through the basics of Morocco. So Morocco is located in Africa. It's at the northwestern part of Africa. During the tour, Adil pulls out a map and shows us our route, which we'll highlight a little bit later. But this is just to give you an idea of where it is in the world. It's butts up to Spain with the Strait of Gibraltar going through water separating the countries. But it is very close to Spain, and it is along the coast of Africa. Um, So some of the history of Morocco, the influences are Berber in the 7th century, Arab, French, Spanish, and I learned in our cooking class when we were just there a few weeks ago that there's some influence of Jewish religion and Islam and Christianity in the food. So there's all these influences happening to culminate this country. It's like kind of like a melting pot of lots of history and religion and languages there. In Morocco, the values are heavily weighted on relationships. They think of things as a we culture rather than than the alternative like me culture. It's very social, lots of conversation. The hospitality is amazing. Um, do you have anything to add, Adil?
Sure. So when we talk about Morocco as a whole, it's a very, as you said, diverse country, and it's a melting spot. And you will see this throughout the entire trip, not only from the landscape, but also from the ethnicities that we will encounter. We have more than 67 tribes in the country. We always feel like we're traveling through different countries, but we're only covering a space or surface roughly the size of California. There's high Atlas mountains, there's deserts, oceans, forests, and there's medinas, ancient cities of centuries ago. So diversity is what makes Morocco very special. And we have a lot of languages that are spoken in dialects. The Moroccan society as a whole is a society that sticks together. So we use the term we sometimes even to refer to yourself. And so it's a very collective effort. People give gifts to each other a lot of times. They would make meals and then offer them to their neighbors, and everybody. It could be a little bit tricky because everybody's nosy about everybody's business, but still we like it. So I think that makes Morocco also special. Go ahead, Andrea.
Oh, thank you, Adil. And that is really what makes it special. They're very flexible there. People are just willing to, meet you part way, meet you where you're at. A lot of flowing conversation and things of that nature. So, why retreat to Morocco? This is a testimonial we have from our Morocco retreat in 2020, um, highlighting that it really pays off having the connections that Traverse has in Morocco. I just went on our February trip, and I don't think I would have visited Morocco if it wasn't with you guys, with Traverse and with Adil and having a local guide and Adil having so much knowledge about the country and um, just knowing where to go and what to do and how to act and how do I navigate this ever-changing landscape of our trip there. We start out in the Medinas, we end up in the Sahara. There's just so much diversity of the trip, and it really is a valuable asset to go on this group tour.
Yeah, I think also what I like about what Traverse Journeys are doing is this is from the get-go since our first retreat with Ashley. We always have focused on, as you said, people, planet, and purpose, but really doing itineraries that are very different than mass tourism. And so when you go on a Traverse Journey trip, you would always feel like mass tourism is going one direction and we're going totally the other. It's off the beaten path. We do a lot of off-roading. We may encounter uh, nomads on the way. We may encounter wild animals, but it's something that we feel passionate about in terms of showing our guests the true Moroccan culture and also the true Moroccan landscape. So anything that is heavily polluted with mass tourism, we stray away from, and then we do our thing. So I think that this is again what makes a big purpose of why retreats in Morocco.
Hmm. Yeah, and it really was an adventure. The off-roading, I think when people think of off-roading, they think of like a really rough journey. I felt like the off-roading was smooth for the most part. It was very adventurous. We came across an ostrich, we saw camels, we saw people along the way. So you don't know what you're gonna get or what to expect. It's not like some planned out, we're gonna hit a camel herd right here. Like you don't know where they're gonna
No.
be. But it is just exciting to not know what you're gonna see along the journey out there.
Yeah.
So we do yoga on our upcoming retreat in September. They're expertly guided flows with our yoga instructor, Jade. And we do yoga in Marrakech at the Riads. We do it in the Sahara. So there's a lot of different environments where you'll be practicing yoga. Really on this trip, this retreat to Morocco, we focus on transformative things that happen for you personally. I know I experienced so much transformation on this trip. A lot of healing through the body, the body, mind, and soul. That's what holistic is, incorporating all those things and having the community around you in Morocco, the community of the people on the retreat, all the places that we visit. It just encompasses this whole element that makes going on a retreat to Morocco very special. But we explore and get out of our comfort zone and have an adventure. The structure for yoga in the retreat is that we'll provide the yoga mats. There's different modalities that'll be incorporated. The retreat leader really listens to the group and sees what their needs are. And we have settings that are natural, like we could be on a terrace rooftop, we could be in the sand, we might be in like a little tent if it's cold. And the sessions are worked in every day for 1 hour to have a retreat format. So let's take a trip and tell you a little bit more about the itinerary portion.
Mhm.
So our itinerary is a 9-day base. We are in Marrakech for several days and we're out in the Sahara and we're also moving out to the Sahara. So Adil, do you want to highlight this kind of map that we drew? Because
Sure.
it's
Um,
very,
so what you're looking at the map right now, so it kind of looks like a loop, right? The start point is Marrakech, and right between Marrakech and where the loop opens and closes is what we call the High Atlas Mountains. And so we on the first day we'll cross the High Atlas Mountains. We are going to be driving through fabulous landscapes of mountains. And September we might still have a little bit of snow on the High Atlas Mountains, which is great to see this contrast of driving through the snow and then arriving at the Sahara Desert. Now, the first night that we spent will be in a beautiful accommodation in the middle of the largest palm oasis in Morocco, and it's called Agdes. The Riyadh or the hotel itself is literally surrounded by mountains of palm trees. And then the second day, we'll keep pushing towards the Sahara Desert. Now, for the first portion of the day, we'll be driving on normal roads. And then afterwards, we'll do a little bit of off-roading until we get to the camp. When we get to the camp, we will stay for 2 nights. And I'm trying not to give a lot of surprises about events that are happening, but it's very magical. We try to visit nomad families. We try to have lunch picnics. Arriving at the camp itself could be surreal because as we're driving on the sand dunes, you don't have an idea that there's actually a camp and tents and everything. And when I say camping, it's we're not going to be roughing it. It's going to be a tent with a normal bed, rugs all over, and there will be toilets. So we're staying there for 2 nights, and then we make our way to close that loop so we can stay in a town called Ouarzazate, because the next day we have a visit of one of the most ancient villages in Morocco, Aït Ben Haddou. And then afterwards, we'll find our way back as we close the loop to Marrakech.
Mhm. And then
And then, of course,
we also have a 3-day add-on
exactly.
after the main base trip that Adil described to
Yeah,
we take a train out to Fez, which is north, and then to Chefchaouen, and we'll talk about that more later on.
Mhm.
So the experience in Morocco, we stay at local riads. We experience a lot of seasonal foods and a lot of authentic Moroccan cuisine. We visit the souks. There's an opportunity to add on hammam, which is a traditional experience that is unlike anything else. I highly recommend it. In the desert, we are glamping. In the tents, there are bathrooms. So it's not really roughing it kind of camping. And we visit a Berber women's co-op. That's our community partner. And we have daily workshops for the retreat portion. These are some examples of accommodations. So we stay in mostly riads. We're glamping out in the desert, but this gives you an idea of what to expect. And what makes a riad, Adil? Could you explain that to?
Sure. So a riad is mostly going to be an open courtyard. A riad is a design that was made a long time ago so that the center of the house is open, but there's also a fountain. For geometric and architectural reasons, it makes the whole place feel breezy and cool. But the word riad in Arabic means actually breeze. So that um, was the backbone to name this structure a riad. Now, riads you only find in Morocco. The cool thing about these riads is that they're very elaborate and very magical, but then you can't tell that as you're walking through the street because it's literally a very small, simple door. And then once you open that door, then it's hundreds of tiles and carvings all over the place. And some of them are really ancient. Now, kasbahs are going to be outside of the medinas, and medinas are cities. And the kasbahs usually are multiple stories, and they're made out of mud. And some of these kasbahs date back to the 12th or 13th century, of course, with renovation and everything. The structure changes when we get to the Sahara Desert because the camp will be one main big tent, which will be the restaurant. And then there's adjoining tents to the side, as you can see. There's multiple places for everyone to practice yoga, and also multiple opportunities to practice yoga. There's early sunrise, there's also sunset. The tents are wide and big enough to accommodate 2, 3, or 4 people. And then, of course, there's showers and bathrooms.
Mm-hmm. And then here's some information about Marrakech. So Marrakech is a city,
Yeah,
and the Medina is the inside of the city. It's surrounded by walls.
exactly.
And during the tour, Adil told us about, why that is, and you'll learn a lot about the history of the Medina, and you'll visit the souks. So souks are kind of
Markets.
artisan vendors. This artisan
Mhm,
is making a honey stick out of wood with his feet.
mhm.
We got to see that. That was very interesting. These wood carvers. And then here's some other pictures of places that we see. We learn about, how they make shoes, how they make their spices. And do you want to add anything, Adil?
Yeah, so souks are simply going to be markets, but it's markets where all the artisans are actually making their products. And these products could be anything from, as you mentioned, spices, leather, jewelry, woodworking, and a lot of art. The souks of Marrakech are very elaborate and very live. So once you get into the souk, you'll be stimulated by the smells, by the colors. Everybody tries to make their shop look as appealing as possible. It is a very busy area, and it looks like a maze. And I'll tell you when every Medina was made, and I'll tell you also what street is good for what, and most importantly, the best places to get the best stuff. But the souks of Marrakech are truly an experience on its own. As you can see, on one side, there's a picture of mountains of spices, and we'll have the opportunity to stop at a spice shop to learn about all these spices. And then also on the left, there's a picture of what we call babouche, or shoes. But there's literally streets where it's millions of shoes all over the place, and everybody feels very passionate about displaying their products. So we'll have that experience in Marrakech. You could see on the picture before, if you go back, that's it. So on the left side, that's a big open space, and there's a mosque. That is going to be a big tourist hub. We call that Jama' El Fana, and it's ever changing because throughout the day, more people would show up, and they're offering different stuff. There's stand-up comedy, there's live music. In the morning, there's snake charmers. And then on the right side, you could see somebody curving, somebody making, doing woodwork with, as Andrea said, with their feet. But there's the idea of the souks is that the artisans are keeping the tradition of making these very elaborate products the way they were making them a long time ago. And again, coming back to what makes Morocco very special is this contrast between still holding on to the true identity of Moroccans as when it comes to what they do, their artisans, their the cooking and the outfits, but also trying to be a very modern country. infrastructure wise, being open to the world, things like that.
Yeah. I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about being there
You're,
because it was
you're,
just
you're
so
already missing.
magical.
You're already missing Morocco.
Yeah, I love Morocco. I want to go back as soon as possible. So we do journey over the High Atlas Mountains, and here's a view of that. And we visit Ben Haddou, Ben
Yeah.
Haddou, I keep saying it
So
backward.
yeah, Aït Ben Haddou is as I told you, it's a very interesting city, and it's also a playground for a lot of movie making. They're actually making a movie right now about some Greek mythology or something. So our trip was in the right time because now Aït Ben Haddou is blocked off for about 4 days or so. So
Yeah, we timed it really well.
uh-huh. That's a picture of everybody on the top of Aït Ben Haddou. And so it's a little bit of a hike also, but also we go through the elaborate city of Aït Ben Haddou. This is a picture of one of the local artists who's making what we call a burning painting. And he's basically painting on uh, paper, but you can't see anything. And then he will have to burn it, and then you will see all the colors.
Yeah, those were really cool to watch him do that. Because he kind of used like an invisible ink, and then as he burned through the paper, then you saw the colors appear.
Yeah.
It was very interesting and unique. And then we head out to the Sahara. So this is a photo of one of our groups out there in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
Along the way, we stopped at a vendor to get the head turbans, and I learned how to put it on, and I did it myself.
There you go.
So yeah, we learned some skills. And then these are our drivers along with Adil. Adil's there on
Mhm.
the left, and Ashley, our Traverse founder, is in the center with the crew.
Yeah.
Takes us
And
out.
so all the drivers are also friends and family of mine. We grew up all born and raised in the Sahara, and so that's why we know how to navigate the desert. Either like back in the day, we did that with camels, and now we're doing it with comfortable SUVs to take our guests to see this beautiful place.
Mhm. And
As
then
you can see, this is a sunset camel ride, and it's a very interesting experience, especially for people that never been on a camel's back. But I promise, it's very comfortable.
yeah. I mean, I've heard horror stories about the camel rides, reading a lot of things about Morocco before I went, but I do have to
Mhm.
say the camel, the way they saddle it, it's very comfortable. I feel like they make sure that the camels are also comfortable. I kind of bonded with my camel. I could feel his back moving, like the spine, as he walked, but it was just comfortable. So much padding underneath, the saddle. And the person leading the camels was amazing. He stopped and took pictures of us along the way, and then we settle into a spot, and Adil kind of rides by us in an SUV and sets up a little like drink aperitif area for us while we watch the sunset, and then we ride the camels back. And it's
Mhm.
a really magical experience. It's unlike anything I've ever done, so if you get the chance to ride a camel, you can do it on our trip for sure.
Yeah.
Here's a photo of us doing some yoga in the desert, another, viewpoint. You can see the tents a little better in this picture off to the right.
Mhm.
And then in the evening, you will see so many stars. It's quite magical. And Adil and the guys that bring us out there, they play music around a campfire, and there's some singing and dancing, and it's just
Mhm.
an all around good time out there in the Sahara.
Yeah.
So this is the woman from one of the nomad families that we visit. We watched her make bread in the sand. It was probably the best bread I've had in Morocco. So it was very interesting to watch them from a cultural perspective of like this was a different way of making bread. They just heat up a fire and cooked it in the sand.
Yeah. And so again, as I was saying, we try to show our guests the best of the real authentic Morocco. And there's very few people that are still living this nomadic life. I actually, every time we're going on one of our trips, I keep communication with all these nomad families. They're using these little phones, um, and I always ask where they are because they're always moving. And if they're at the same spot where we saw them last time, then we go and visit them. They're very welcoming. They bring tea for everyone, and then out of the goodness of their hearts, they show people how to make these delicious sand bread. And again, it's a tradition of hundreds of years ago. So this is what I like about Traverse, and it's people meeting real authentic people. You feel like you're going to visit somebody that you already know, and you feel like you're going to your neighbor's house. That's what matters.
It really is. And I kind of bond with the people out there. It's unlike uh, magical experience.
We'll get you there again.
I know, I can't wait to go back again. And this is our community partner. So we visit a Berber women's co-op.
Uh-huh.
We learned that 95% of the sales of the rugs that these women are making go directly to them. So it's such an amazing place. We saw how the rugs are weaved. We had the opportunity to purchase a rug. Um, there's no commitment to do so. You don't have to purchase one, but it's the opportunity to get a really good quality rug. You'll see lots of vendors in Marrakech and the other Medinas selling rugs, but this is coming right from the source. So you're going to get the best quality rug if you want to buy one and bring one home. And you can see like all the wool, and we watch them.
Yeah.
They spin the
Mhm.
wool and get it ready like from scratch to the finished product. Um, and part of a portion of our sales from the trip go to this community partner. So it's a donation that we make.
Mhm.
And then here's some other pictures. You can see.
Yeah, you can see on the left side the process of making the rugs from scratch, and then on the right side you can see, and I believe that's Ashley in the middle of a beautiful courtyard just filled with handmade Moroccan rugs. It's something that people actually, even Moroccans in bigger cities, don't get to do because you'll have to find these very remote villages in the back pages of Morocco.
Mm.
Um, and the our community partner, the co-op, are very welcoming, and they open their doors for us, and they're very enthusiastic about showing the entire process. And as Andrea said, there's no pressure for anybody to buy anything. There's a donation that is made out of the sale of the trip, which everyone there is very grateful about it because it keeps the tradition of making these beautiful ancient techniques of rugs. Um, and so this is again one of the things that Traverse Journeys are doing that is very different than other tour operators. So I can't wait for everybody to experience that.
Yeah. And then let's talk about the food because the food is amazing. I mean, the food. So this is a picture of lemons. What they do out there is they make these preserved lemons that are in the tagines, and they are just so popping with flavor. It's so delicious.
Mhm.
Um, we took a cooking class and we learned how to make the lemons. We learned how to make a tagine. And basically, a tagine is a dish that's made in a special pot called a tagine. And if it's not made in the tagine, it's not a tagine.
Yeah.
And then every time we eat or go somewhere, we're welcomed with tea. So this is a little toast on a rooftop. Probably we checked into that riad and they had tea for us. So every time you get to a new riad, they'll have tea for you. Um, Lots of places we visited, they had tea for us. It was just so packed full of tea. Um, but here's an example of, here's a good list of food that you can expect out in Morocco. So tagines are a big part of it. Couscous is a traditional meal. There's lots of seasonal fruits. I know I had foods that had dates and figs in them. It was seasonal in the spring. Lots of these vegetables were served. Lentils and
Yeah.
chickpeas are sources for vegans and vegetarians. You can find gluten-free options and the Moroccan mint tea, of course.
And basically, everyone is going to have, every accommodation is going to have different types of foods with different seasoning. And we will see in the city of Marrakech that spices are a wide range of a plethora. So um, only to give you an example, there's a spice in Morocco. There's a combination of 35 spices. So there's that.
Yeah, that was truly unique and special. We learned how that's made at one of the souks. Adil, we lost your video.
Yeah, I'm
Big screen.
getting my charger.
Ah, okay. But I mean, the community aspect around meals is just second to none. Tea is just such a celebrated community thing. And then you gather at these big long tables to eat. So here's an example of that. This is one of the breakfasts. They bring lots of coffee, fresh squeezed orange juice every day, fresh baked breads. Just everything that you are going to eat is just fresh. This is a view down the center of a riad where a table is set up to have a meal. So if the riad center is big enough, then this would be traditional in that type of setting. And then, sometimes we'll be sitting outside. So this is a table of our group out on the way to Sahara having a meal. And then let me tell you about Fez a little bit. So Fez and Chefchaouen are add-ons. It's optional. It's 3-day itinerary. We spend 2 days in Fez and 1 day in Chefchaouen. In Fez, we go on a walking tour with a local guide. It's not Adil. It's someone Adil knows. His name's Mohammed.
A
And
good friend of mine. So
yeah, he's a good friend of his. But we visited tanneries, we visited wood carving, copper making, tile making. The copper there was exquisite. I wanted to buy everything in that store. And it was this really wonderful places that we visited and stopped at. So he really handpicked, just like Adil does on the main tour, handpicked these vendors that, are really making authentic, good quality items. So this is a picture from a walking tour.
mm.
Do you see some sites out there? On the right, this is a picture of the tanneries. On the left, this is a photo from some streets in Fez. And Fez is also Medina. It's a labyrinth. You could get a little lost in these Medinas, but
Yeah.
somehow
So
you'll figure
basically,
out
the
your way.
entire country of Morocco has different kinds of Medinas, but historically speaking, Fes is going to be the oldest, and so it is bigger. But Marrakech is much more equipped and a little bit more modern, but it does have a lot of the traditional aspect of a Medina also. Now, we always say that Medinas are different because of its people. And again, we talked about the diversity when it comes to the social tissue. So people of Marrakech are going to be a little bit different than people of Fes, and naturally, whatever they offer in their Medinas in terms of artisanal stuff and products is going to be different. But everybody is going to be friendly and kind and welcoming.
Yeah. And this is a photo from one of our riads in Fez, Dar Rahmana. they got together and put a picture together for us. No matter how distant we are family, stronger together. See you soon. Love Ramana. It is a beautiful riad. These are some photos. We have a welcome dinner when we arrive in Fez, in this area on the right. On the left is an example of one of the rooms. This is set up to be a double occupancy accommodation.
Mhm.
Here's another photo of the inside of the riad.
Yeah, in this picture, you could actually see the aspect of a riad itself. You see how it's like open from the outside, but what's beautiful about it is, again, the inside is different than the outside, but you see like millions of tiles and archways and cedar woodworking. So it's a truly like a place of serenity.
Yeah, it was really quite beautiful in Fez. And then we go off to Chefchaouen for one day. It's the Blue City, so everything is painted blue. It's quite gorgeous, really, and it's a little bit more northern of a city, so you do get a little bit of a different feel in this Medina. It felt smaller, um it felt like I was kind of in like a more northern area, like I felt like I went to the mountains, but it's not really in the mountains. There are mountains over there, the Rift Mountains, but they were different from that high Atlas Mountains, but it just felt so different there. And then here are some travel tips. So we plan our trips in the spring and the fall. Um, it can be a little bit chilly at night, so it's good to pack clothing accordingly. Um, as far as dressing, you want to dress conservatively. You want to be smart when traveling around. Cash is king. Most vendors don't even accept credit cards. Is there anything you want to add about this?
Um, so with that being said, there's plenty of opportunities for people to use ATMs. And we try to advise on, um, like the best spots to get the best currency change. If you even bring American dollars with you, there's places where you can exchange them. As I always uh, tell people, don't exchange money at the airport, because outside of the airport, there's better places where you can do that. You get better rates. But throughout the entire itinerary, every city and most of the small towns have ATMs all over the place. Now,
Mhm.
there's places where you will need um, a bit of cash with you, and those places mostly are going to be the Medinas, because there's a lot of vendors and you might see a lot of things that you like. And not all of them have uh, credit card processing machines. Again, as we talked about flexibility in one of the slides, there's sometimes even places that don't accept credit card machines, but they would tell you to hold on, and then they're going to go to their neighbor and bring their machine and process your card, and then they would do it out all the time. It may take 5 minutes or something, but
Mhm.
they will get it done. But there's a lot of opportunities for people to use ATMs throughout the entire trip. At the Sahara Desert, there's no ATM. That I cannot promise.
And I mean, I even saw some vendors, like when they had to make change, they would go over to another vendor to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. But
So
again,
it
it's
is
a sense of
very
community,
community focused. Mhm. Now, some trips about solo females traveling. You want to make sure that you dress conservatively. That's what we mean by appropriate. Covering your shoulders, not bearing a lot of skin. Um, Time and place does matter, but you want to be kind but not too friendly. Don't be afraid to speak up, things like that. Adil, if you want to touch on this a little bit more.
Yeah. So as I said before, people are very friendly, but then there's sometimes like misunderstandings on the street. There's sometimes people that are The vendors, they may seem a little bit more pushy when it comes to sales and whatnot, and especially in touristic areas like big medinas. But one of the things that I always teach our guests is how to say no thank you in the local language, which throughout the entire trip I'll be teaching you different terminologies that makes the locals know that you know your game. But other than that, when you're in a surrounding area with high traffic, I always tell people to keep an eye on their surroundings, be friendly. But then if you think that somebody is being too pushy on you or something, then don't be afraid to say no thank you and just leave that area. When I'm with you on the trip, leading the let's say the Medina aspect of the trip or something like that, then I'll be there to advise on what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and yeah, having a good time, but then at the same time keeping an eye on the way you behave around people and whatnot. But most importantly, everybody is very kind and friendly in Morocco.
Yes, yes, lots of kind people. But these are just tips to keep yourself safe, keep them safe, not to be disrespectful, things of that nature. We do have a discount for joining us today. If you want to join our trip, you'll use this code Morocco Live and you'll receive $200 off the trip price. Let's see, and then here's a link, and I can send that later. I'm going to send out the recording to everyone, so if you have anyone that wants to check out this event, you can forward them the link as well. And then we have a few more events coming up soon. So next week we are talking about our Mexico retreat. Following week we are talking about Italy, and then Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu was scheduled for April, so it's just a little out of order, but we moved it up a little bit. But those are some of our other live events coming up that you can register for on Eventbrite. Or you can find them on our Traverse Journeys trip pages. So each of these trip pages has a link to the event. And if you have any questions, we are happy to answer them now.
I have a question.
Sure. Go ahead.
What are the age groups? Like what are the age ranges that you've had for people on the trip? Particularly the youngest.
I mean, it really ranges. So we just had a trip and the ages ranged from late 20s to 70s.
Have you ever had kids on the trip, or do you guys organize things where kids are allowed? Like my youngest is 11, so like fully functional and independent, but it's not like a toddler.
Yeah, absolutely. I think age. I mean, as long as they're not by themselves, if they have their parents,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No, but I just I didn't know if there were like age restrictions on the group travel where you say nobody under 18 or whatever.
I mean, typically we have adults on most of our trips, but we have had children as well. They just need to be accompanied by a guardian or a legal guardian of some sort, their
Sure.
guardian. And then you would be signing for them.
Yeah.
So you're in charge of them for the trip, essentially. Yeah. Do you have any other questions, Jennifer?
That's the only question that I have.
Okay, perfect. If you think of anything else, feel free to email us. We're always open to answering lots of questions. And we also have a frequently asked questions section on the trip page. If anything comes to mind, it might be answered there. Feel free to stay in touch with us, and make sure that you have hello@traversejourneys.com, and it should say admin@traversejourneys.com as well as your safe sender list. You can see us at Instagram, Facebook, or Pinterest and our tag is Traverse Journeys. Thank you for joining us today.
Cool. Thank you guys. This looks amazing.
Thank you.
Welcome.